Today's episode is for you if you work with children who are challenging to work with, because I have a message that you need to hear. And that message is the sky is the limit, that you can do this. You can do hard things. I think it's so important that you realize that you are capable of this. It's not a question of if you can do it, but only a question of how. And you're going to find out how through a lot of elbow grease, through a lot of wins, a lot of failures. And every time you win, and every time you fail, you're going to take one step closer to what it takes for this child to be successful. And it's not a question of whether if the child can do it or if the child can't. Of course they can. It's a question of how. How can we help the child so that the child can thrive? Today's episode, I'm going to give you a little bit of background, the motivation behind it, because it involves a personal story. Every week I come to you, and it's based on what is on my heart and mind. It's not based on what's going to get views, what's going to be popular. Much of what we've talked about isn't talked about anywhere else. I love being first to a topic. I love being an innovator. I love being right on the front lines with you and learning something new. And a lot of times, I look to other fields that are more advanced in certain areas than we are in the field of speech pathology. And I look at ways how we can leap ahead looking at the work of other fields. But today I'm going to talk about a personal experience. And that was a couple of weeks ago, I lost a very close friend of mine, and he was an 81-year-old man. So he was in old age. And he was a social worker throughout his life. And then he taught at the university after he retired. We would always have a lot of deep meaning of life type of conversations. One thing that really bothered him was going into Christian churches and seeing Jesus dying on the cross. He said, why do they always have this? Whenever you walk into the Christian church, this is the first thing you see, or when you're praying, this is what you're seeing. Because he felt this is something that elicits negative emotions. This is something that would be not a positive force in your prayer. Why not instead do you have a picture of Jesus preaching, or Jesus with children, or Jesus with his disciples spreading the good word? So this is something that really bothered him, and he didn't like going into Christian churches for that reason because of the crucifix. Ironically, I was there with him the day he passed, and he looked, I would say, exactly like the real life version. When you go into a church, you see it in a statue form, but of Jesus on the crucifixion, the way he looked. So he had the full beard and mustache, and he was grossly underweight. He was just bones, and he couldn't even hold up his head, and his eyes just floated upwards, and his pupils were sort of dilated, and his mouth was hanging ajar, and he could barely breathe. I was with him the last moments just before he passed. And if you've ever experienced this, it's horrific. If you've ever been with someone who is going through this level of decline, literally starving, struggling to take a breath, and they can't even move their eyes, and they don't have control over their body anymore. It's just everything given out. The heart's giving out, and all the other organs were shutting down. I thought there's a reason I'm experiencing this. And there's a reason the numerous times he said, this is a sight I don't want to see. And this is a sight people shouldn't see. And this was a sight I was seeing. And I would agree with him. This is not a positive experience. This is something that I think it could cause trauma for someone, seeing the loved ones in this sort of level of suffering. He was in a lot of pain at the time as well. But I could also see that there was a message in that. And I thought, the message in that is when you see someone suffering, don't look away. Attend to that person. So when it comes to children that we work with, there's children that are going to have tantrums that are hours long. There's children that bite and scratch. There's children that bang their heads. There's children that smear feces. There's children that make themselves bleed. There's children that we see that are suffering. And the worst thing we can do is to look away. And the best thing we can do is to attend to them. I think that there's something very important and very powerful in that message. And the message I see is one of humanism. You don't have to be religious. You don't have to be Christian, Muslim, Jewish. You don't have to be any religion whatsoever. It's that idea of humanism, and that idea that we're here for a purpose that's larger than ourselves. And that purpose is to take care of one another. We have children that we work with, if you work in the field of speech pathology, and I'll give you an example, children with autism. I talk about them a lot on this podcast, and that's because they are very much underserved and they're very much misunderstood. They have a multifaceted condition in which many areas are impacted. However, many people work with children with autism without that understanding, and they use an approach that is very narrow in nature, and they wonder why they're not getting results. They're looking at treating a symptom of the issue. They're not looking at treating a child. So when you're working with children with autism, you must have a very, very holistic approach. If you don't have a holistic approach, you're going to be banging your head against the wall because it's a multifaceted condition and it requires a multifaceted approach. So we can go off on that tangent and we can talk about physical therapy. Why are they being underserved and why are they not receiving physical therapy? We can talk about the many ways that children with autism are currently being underserved. But I'm not going to talk about that today. What I'm going to talk about is us and what we can do and how we can come in the form of bread. I challenged you last week to reflect. And last week we did a brain dump. We said, okay, what were all the things that went right? This was fire. Okay. Where are the holes? Okay, these are holes. Okay, what could I do that is really, really working on my back porch? And how could I translate that to the holy area? What do I know is tried and true in this area? And how would I make that work in these areas where there's holes? I'm not asking you to reinvent the wheel. I'm asking you to take that wheel, make some modifications, and make it work over here. What I'm talking about today is about this suffering, is that the idea in humanism is that we are going to take care of one another and we're going to use everything that we have to do so. There's a feeling of altruism when you take all of their mind and all of your body. And if you work with challenging populations, you get it. It's not only mentally taxing, it is emotionally taxing. It is physically taxing. Many times you have to be a human jack in the box to keep children's attention. You've got a lot of sensory distractions that you're competing with. So you really have to be high energy. I feel like it's like I'm training for the Olympics. I have to be in top shape mentally, physically. I have to be really on my game and really, really skilled at what I do in order to work with children with multifaceted conditions. But nonetheless, the point in this is that you're giving all of yourself. You're giving all of yourself to help someone else. When I think about this experience that I had with my good friend, I think there was a reason for this. I think that there was a reason that I was with this good friend who was suffering and alongside this friend and thinking about what he had said earlier so many times before and how he detested that you see someone suffering. I think it's important to see people who are suffering. It's important not to look away, but instead to go towards it. And it goes beyond that. It goes into also giving all of yourself to this individual to make the world a better place. So it's a very high level of altruism that we're talking about here. It's beyond a profession. It is a mission. You are on a mission and you're making the world a better place, one child at a time. So what are you going to do? You're going to do what you do best. You're going to roll up your sleeves and you make the world a better place, one child at a time. You will always be first.